Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was beautiful. And thank you so much, Reverend Juanita. I'm going to talk a little bit about Dr. King today, but I'd love to hear the beauty and the power and the majesty that came out of Dr. King's mouth. And what you just shared with us was really moving and outstanding. And my talk today is about freedom. We're ending the month of love with freedom. And I'm going to keep focusing on what our freedom really is freedom of changing our minds. So we like to talk around here, things we like to do, and one of our favorite things to do is that practicing affirmative prayer. Technically, we call it spiritual mind treatment from time to time. And what that spiritual mind treatment does, it allows us to treat our minds to spend some time in spiritual truth. Now, we can treat for a lot of different things, or do our affirmative prayer for a lot of different things, for maybe a little better house, maybe a parking place, maybe some better relationships. But when we get it to the most powerful place, we're treating for all. We're treating for the truth, for all to know this truth and to make use of it in their life. And we have a history of this in this country. Thomas Jefferson from the Declaration of Independence said this. John, if I can give him my first slide. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I think that was more than a preamble to make a break with a ruling country that was being a little dictatorial. Perhaps they were talking about pursuing the happiness within themselves. And so when we talk about affirmative prayer, we talk about praying and moving our feet, or we say treat and move our feet. Because a good prayer is not something that disappears in 2 minutes. A good prayer, you can almost think of it as a guiding star that's going to guide you forward. Because we are divine. We've said that over and over on Sundays. But we are human too. So humans make mistakes. So if you have a guiding star, when you make a mistake, you have something to go back to guide you again. You will falter, that's for sure. But when you make an error, don't turn your back on that guiding star, because that guiding star is the truth that you realize from inside. And that's what's going to bring you back to freedom. And the freedom is what's going to set you free from the life that you used to have. So think about it for a minute, too. We like symbols, don't we? What's your favorite spiritual symbol? For some of us, it's a cross. For some of us, maybe it's a statue of a Buddha. Maybe I have a carving of a Buddha in my house that I really like. Or maybe if you're into nature, it's a beautiful sunset, a beautiful sunrise, any of the above. What's your spiritual symbol? I'll just give you a few seconds to think about that, so we can make use of it a little bit later. So, for Dr. King, his favorite symbol was the cross. And it's interesting the take he took on that. He said that the one part of the cross represented the highest that we could possibly be, and that was Jesus to him. That part of us that knows unconditional love, that part of us that's absolutely, totally inclusive, that part of us that teaches love, teaches we are our brothers and sisters' keeper. But yet the cross has that other part of us, the part where humanity goes to a bit of a lower level. Maybe represents, as he said, the sordid weakness in man, where we're doing harm to another, even killing one another. But for Dr. King, that was a powerful symbol, and he kept focusing on it, and he kept focusing on it, and kept focusing on the beauty that Jesus brought, but realizing the reality that there was a lot of work to do. Dr. Ernest Holmes always says this is an evolution of consciousness that's going on, and so as our consciousness evolves, we make truer and truer decisions. We turn to the truth more and more. And that's where freedom is about. Freedom is about turning back to the truth. And so another one of our great leaders historically was Abraham Lincoln. And so, John, could I get my next slide on there? And he had this great saying that he says, the angels of our better nature. The angels of our better nature. So the hidden message in there, he was telling us to turn to our higher self. He was telling us to turn to the best nature within us, because true healing only occurs when we see the best in one another. True transformation only occurs when we see the highest value in one another. So we have this shining star. Maybe there's a symbol associated with it for you, and maybe that's a way that you can make use of it, to never turn away from this. You can turn away, but never stay away from the truth inside of you that you realized at some point in time. The second part of recognizing freedom is recognizing there's a mass amount of freedom in forgiveness. So many of us have long-term relationships that probably need a lot of work, because it's easy for us to get caught up in this great philosophy we have here, the science of mind, which is a great philosophy. But we have to understand this, there's this human and emotional part of ourselves that we have to understand and allow it to be healed. So there's real work to be done for that. And the work is from us. It's not from the other people. And the healing is a healing that we have to do to ourselves, not to heal the other people that damaged us. And John, could I get my next slide, please? And this has been quoted by so many people, I don't even know who wrote it anymore. And it goes like this: resentment is like taking poison and hoping the other person will die. So why do we need this forgiveness? Because we need to let go of our own toxic thoughts. Because as long as I hang on to my toxic thoughts, who suffers? I suffer. No one else. I suffer as long as I hang on to my toxic thoughts. So we need to get to the path of surrender. We need to get to the path of releasing and letting go. And it's not just our long-term issues that we had with a member of our family or an old spouse or someone we just didn't get along with. We have this daily dance that we do where we get in a lot of judgment, we get in a lot of resentment of maybe people that are really critical about us. Maybe it's the media coverage 24/7 that we keep turning on and allowing us to become resentful and upset. Maybe it's the people we judge are bad people. Maybe it's that other political party that we don't agree with. For me, one of the most empowering things I ever did was give up my political party affiliation forever when I became a minister. I'm not asking you guys to do that. All that I'm saying is that understand that this poison is affecting you, and it's yours to change that. And just maybe even it's the other people who are just flat wrong. We just don't agree with them. So the great Desmond Tutu said this in one of his books. He says, Until we forgive, we remain locked in our pain and locked out of the possibility of experiencing healing and freedom, and locked out of the possibility of being at peace. So what we want to be is we want to be at peace. At least I want to be at peace. I want to be at a place where I'm at peace. I'm not so busy judging other people that I can love sincerely. I can smile and I can have joy in my life every day. So maybe the daily practice, if we take something away from here, we take a daily practice of letting go of judgment. Every day we let go of judgment. Every day we make an effort to let go of resentment. And every day we let go of making others wrong. So we have this way of having this vision, this shining star that can help us. And we have this task that we can do of letting go of resentment and getting into forgiveness. But now I think we're ready to take it to a new level. Now we're ready to grab the freedom of seeing the best in everything, because that's what our philosophy really teaches us to do. To see that we are on this dance, and whatever path we're on is a perfect and right path. As Ernest Holmes would say, the conscious evolution that we're making. And we're doing exactly what we need to be doing to get to the next step. Because we start to see that everyone we run across is powerful and creative spiritual beings, and they're all alive and well. In our minds, they may not be making good choices, but they're alive and well on their path. And what we realize is to grab this freedom, we have to let go of the circumstances. The circumstances do not matter. And to create a world that works for everyone, that's almost the first step. Because for me, Michael, to create a world that works for everyone, I have to create a world that works for Michael first. And the way I do that is almost like our first two steps we've been talking about, having a vision, a star, following that star, and giving up my resentment. And then I can start to grab that truth in my mind that will create a world that works for everyone. And I have to give up circumstances. So let's think about our circumstances for a minute. So I know my circumstances would have pointed to failure if I kept buying into it over and over again. Lord knows my relationships would have pointed to failure. The locations, it took me a long time to get to California, which I know I was meant to be here. Even the jobs. Right now, I'm not working in the engineering field, but I know that I am on my path, putting one foot in front of another and stepping forward into my future. So take a moment and just think about it. What about you? What circumstances have you looked at in the past that were troubling, and you thought it was going to be a terrible thing in your life? And as time has passed, you did your work and you got beyond those circumstances, and you realized that those circumstances weren't who you are. And the only reason you did that is because you turned within and recognized that beautiful, divine, unique spiritual person that you are. So when we use these principles, for instance, for abundance and prosperity, we cannot look at anyone else and see lack of self-worth. We cannot look at the world and see lack. We have to go within and look at the world and see abundance. Because anything is possible. So remember, the circumstances do not control things unless we choose to let them. Unless we choose to look at the circumstances and say, that's the way my life's going to be forever, that's the only time the circumstances can control things. So are we willing to take that risk and step up to our faith, step up to our beautiful and strong faith? Because there's something within everyone that triumphs over everything, and that something rests in the freedom of our thought. So Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp. John, could I get my next slide, please? And he said this. He said, the concentration camps could torture me and beat me, but they could not take away my thoughts. I had the freedom to think what I wanted to think. Viktor Frankl, when he was in that concentration camp, he let his thoughts go creative. So he took one step and then two steps at a time. And he envisioned himself walking all over Europe, meeting new people, having great food, having great times, because his mind was creative. And as brutal as his circumstances were, he did not let that interfere with his thoughts, because he was choosing freedom. And freedom always starts with your thoughts. And so there's two very powerful authors and very powerful books that a lot of us have read. One was by Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. Another one was by Eckhart Tolle, called The Power of Now. We've had book studies, I think, on both of these here. But I want you to know that the starting process of them writing those books, at least coming up with the thoughts in their minds, happened when both of them were homeless. So they did not let the circumstances control their lives. So my business and your business is first to control our own experiences. And then we can go back of seeing the best in everything. Are we then willing and ready to focus on the health and well-being of the planet and everything in it? But because it is in my freedom and your freedom on what we choose to focus on. So we can go without and call life the blame. So we can look at our circumstances and say, I would be a spiritual person and I would have these great treatments and I would have these great prayers for the beauty and life and wholeness of the entire planet, except for my circumstances. We have to choose that freedom that Viktor Frankl chose to understand that we can live this beautiful life. We can live this life of choice, of freedom. So if we want prosperity, we have to stop seeing lack and limitation on the outside. And another way of doing it, and one of the old early New Thought teachers taught this, well, just see the world as perfect, even though it doesn't appear perfect, but just know that it's not incomplete. Because it's up to you to make it complete. Ernest Holmes says, nothing is real until you make it real. So that means it's up for us to take our thoughts to freedom and to make our life real. And it's a great way to do this. And if we want to practice this, find your star, your guided vision this week, and follow it. And know that when you get turned away from it, just turn back to it. Take the hard step and work on forgiveness, work on resentment, work on judgment. And then start practicing what we practice here and seeing the absolute best in everything. And these are the three aspects of freedom that if we start to concentrate on and make them our own, I am sure that our lives will change for the better. It's a powerful concept of freedom, and it's a powerful month we just did, all about love. And I am so blessed to be with you guys. I love you. God bless you. Namaste.